So today I am joined by Jonelle, who I should add, Jonelle wrote the section about yoga in Train Happy, so you may well be familiar with her work. But Jonelle, I want to welcome you to the Train Happy podcast.
Thank
And
you.
I would love for you to introduce yourself, your work, and yeah, I would love just tell everyone who you are.
Well, it is a real honor and pleasure to be here with you, Tally. My name is Jonelle Lewis. I am a yoga and meditation teacher. I also mentor teachers and work on yoga teacher trainings. I've done that. Currently, I'm taking a little bit of a break. I'm living in Los Angeles right now and having a little bit of a break. So not in the UK at this moment. And I'm also a mother, which is my most important job. I feel like my job, and one I'm deeply enthusiastic about. I am also I would say a spiritual practitioner. I, again, love yoga, spiritual practice. And I think that also really frames how I look at things, not just as someone that offers these things, but someone that consumes them and practices them as well fully. So yeah, that is me.
And so we connected in London, and I mean, you've lived in London, I think, for 20 years. Is that correct?
Yes, I lived in 20 years up until recently. I literally got to California right before the pandemic started. So it's been a bit weird living in a new place and being like sheltering at home, because that's still very much what I'm doing while we have this the COVID pandemic. It was fantastic to have connected with you in London. I'd known of your work where you really do such an amazing job educating people around what I like to call it is body sovereignty. You know,
Mm.
just being sovereign in your own body and responding to what your body needs. And it is very much in alignment with what I teach. I offer as a physical practice, but also mentally and emotionally as well. You know, sovereignty around all of those things, and doing things that are right for you in the moment. And I really find that is so powerful. How you speak to this and more and again in we can put quote unquote like the fitness and wellness industry, because there are more voices saying these things, which is fantastic, but I feel like still not enough, considering, you know, we are talking about people's selves, you know, like
Mm.
their whole selves. So I really I appreciate you for that. So yeah, and it was super cool that I was able to contribute to your book. It's just really an honor, and to be with to be with you and so many of the other contributors that are really, again, pushing this message of loving yourself fully in any
Mm.
moment, and how that shows up. So
Well, I was so grateful to like connect with you through that, and it's been so lovely to just, yeah, kind of um, feel your support and also just feed off your energy because, yeah, I think it's so interesting how yoga, and we'll talk a bit about how you came to yoga in a second, but like how yoga, I think, is so within the body and it's so about embodiment and working with your breath and your movement. And I mean, I'm not a yoga expert by any means, hence why you wrote that section in the book. but I do know that when times have been tough during this pandemic, I have turned to yoga as a form of way to release the tension, and that tension has been my emotions. And you know, it's
yeah.
also I'm so interested with how it's so connected to the body, and how our sensations in our body are so connected to our emotions. And I really think yoga is a really great way of like connecting those two things.
I think really what yoga, the invitation that it gives us is for us to come inside. And in a deeper invitation, it's an invitation for us to come home. Come home to ourselves, to come home to our bodies. And I'm not saying that other forms of fitness and other forms of movement don't do that. I also practice Qigong, which is from the Tao tradition, from ancient China. And again, these practices like yoga, like Qigong, are somatic practices. So like, it's beyond words. And it really attends to, like you said, the things that end up being stored in the body that, there's a book called The Body Keeps the Score. I don't know if you,
I've got
yeah.
it.
And
I've dipped into it, and
yeah, because
I'm really interested. Yeah.
And I'll even frame it as not necessarily, so we're not always talking about bad things, but if you've been working out a lot, really stressing your body, and it's good stress. Now it's not, it's good stress to improve bone density, all of that stuff, to work your heart, amazing. But if you don't move your body in a more kind of, for me, a different way, to start to release some of like the natural stress, the natural tension that you brought up, and that's great to do that for your body. But if it's just all of that all the time, then it starts to send the body into a place of stress. It always, because when we're doing more of these active things, we're sending ourselves into the sympathetic nervous system, right? And that's not a bad thing. But then we want to counteract it with the parasympathetic nervous system, and yoga does that very well, and helps to release some of the tensions and things. And I also like to think about, like, the times when you're like in Tesco or the supermarket, and someone is like really crazy and rude to you, and instead of like freaking out and screaming and shouting at them, you kind of grin and bear it and get on with it. Well, what I love about yoga and movement is that in that moment, you made a right call to suppress your natural anger, because you just wanted to get out of the shop and go home and have dinner. But where does that go? Where is it? Because energy doesn't die, it just changes form. So it's held in your body. And what I found is like yoga, qigong, and movement and things helps me just to release the stuff that doesn't need to hang out any longer. And just really, to me, it's that simple. And then we start to talk about real trauma, like things that are, very, physical trauma. If you've had an accident, broken a leg, broken an arm, whatever. Again, these sort of practices helps to give you more space around that, and emotions that go along with that sort of trauma. And then some of the things that are a little bit like darker, if you've suffered physical abuse or mental abuse and things like that.
It's why people may go for a massage and burst into tears, because
exactly,
when
you're
able to like release that physical tension, it releases the emotion. I found myself in, lockdown has been a wild ride. And I think the last, actually, I found the hardest stretch has been the last month or so. And I found myself, on my yoga mat, just having a cry, because I knew that I could feel the tension, and it's just like, it was a way for me to access it, and a way for me to release it. And I think that's so powerful to have that tool. I think it's so powerful to have that, and that outlet, because I think, especially with what we're all going through right now, we need those
Those
you need
healing
those
practices.
healing practices. And
Yeah.
yeah, I think on so many levels, just on so many levels. I think on like,
Yeah.
as you said, like our emotions, they're so layered. It's so layered, and how it's in the body is so layered as well. And
Yeah.
but it's so great. So I would love to know how you got into yoga in the first place, though, because I know that you're like, you've been doing this a long time. You know your stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's so funny. I think the very first time I ever did yoga was when I was in college. It was my sophomore year. I went to a school, Howard University in Washington, D.C. I'm very proud of that. Anytime I get a chance to talk about Howard, I love to. And I was in this honor fraternity, right? I've been a geek from day one. And we'd have people come in to speak, and we had this like Swami guy, and he came in and taught us yoga. And what I remember is the Shavasana and the laying, and he was giving us this guided meditation, and just the sense of peace and the sense of oneness that I felt. And I was like, oh, this was great. And then fast forward so I must have been like maybe 19 at that time. And so then fast forward to when I was pregnant with my daughter, and I started doing yoga just as a means to stay moving. And it was a real way to connect with the way my body was changing, and to connect with the new life that was in my body, to connect with my daughter. And I literally did yoga up until I gave birth. It was really, I would go into this like Ashtanga classes. I was crazy. And be doing these sun salutations. And this is before, like, I had like a video or a DVD of pregnancy yoga, and like I had a book, and I would like figure it out. But this is before I feel like yoga was like super cool, or whatever. Like, there was no waiting list to get into the classes. I just was like always there and being able to do it at my local gym. I had my daughter, and I forgot about yoga because I was like busy
Being a mom.
just trying to make sure my daughter didn't die and to
Yeah, that's
feed
fair.
her. Really dramatic, but I was like, a bit of like a nervous mom, like, oh my God, she's small. Oh God, like, am I doing this right? So I had to put all my attention into that. And then quite a few years later, I would say it would have been 2011, 2012. I was going through my divorce, and I didn't feel good. I was in a deep depression. Literally my life was falling apart, which needed to happen because I didn't want that life anymore. So it had to fall apart. And I felt horrible. And my friend, and she'd always tell this story, she's like my best friend, and she went to me, you have to get yourself together. And I know that might sound harsh with, like somebody's depressed and their marriage is falling apart, but really it was a call for me to rescue myself, and nobody was coming. The only person that could do this was me. And then it started an inquiry a process where I'm like, I just don't feel good. I don't feel good. I don't feel resourced or substantial, or like I can do any of this stuff. And I'm like, how can I feel better? And a voice said yoga. So I proceeded to go to any yoga class I could go to. Sometimes I did like 2 classes a day. And I started to feel better. And then a voice said, you should teach this stuff. And I went, okay. It was literally that. I didn't know any yoga teachers. I'd like done gym yoga, and I'd gone to like a few studios. So again, we'll talk about, I had a limited understanding of this practice, but what I knew is that it was changing my life. I was coming more into myself, into my own sovereignty, into my own power. I could see things a lot more clearly. And because of this clarity, I could make better decisions for myself, and decisions that were more centered around me, not more centered around looking a certain way to someone else, or being perceived in this way, or being nice, or whatever. I could make a decision that not only served me, but that would serve my daughter and the people that were intimate with me in my life. So I went and did a teacher training in India. I lived there for a month in 2014, and that was basically that. I had no plan. I had no backup plan. Like, it was like yoga or bust. I can't even believe that was, spirit was so strong that I had no, there was nothing in me that didn't think that this would work out. And now I look back and I'm like, that's completely crackers, Jonelle. Like, what? Like, usually, like, you would research something. I did not. I had all the research I knew. I knew it worked. So that's what I was going to do, was be a yoga teacher. And that is what I have literally been doing ever since.
I relate to that in the sense of, I'm very much of the like mindset of like, I'm going to do it and I'm going to figure it out along the way. Like, I know what I want, I'll figure it out.
Praise. And you know, Tally, you have said something really good. I think people really do need to hear that. Most of this life is figuring it out all along the way. There's no like set answers. Like, there's not like a book of Tally that Tally has received, and she's going through it all. And that's why, like, her life looks like it's amazing. It is a lot of figuring it out along the way, you know. And I think if anybody tells you otherwise, they're a liar. You know.
Exactly. And I have kind of like been stalking you a bit on social media in preparation for our chat today. And I think one of the, and I'm definitely paraphrasing here, and I'm not sure if I'm getting your words correctly, so please feel free to correct me. But you were talking about the links between yoga and social justice, and you're saying that it's so heavily intertwined. And I just want to hear your thoughts on that. And I think that is so relevant for this moment and this movement right now. And I would just love to hear your thoughts on that.
So this is something, it's like, oh, I could bang on about this all day. So I'm going to really hold myself in and say this in the most direct and potent way that I can. When the way that I experience this practice, so again, I have to say it's my experience, my direct experience, is that it is a practice of embodiment. So it helps me to be me and who I am. And it doesn't want me to turn away from that. It helps me to look at my experience, like what is present in me right now. That's what it does. And through that experience, through that lens, it empowers me to be in relationship and in community with other people. And through that, it's like we're all doing this, looking inwards and seeing what is here. And then with that, we have these eyes to look outwards about what is going on. And I'm like, well, if everyone that says they're a yogi is doing the practice that I'm doing, then I can't see how people aren't going, Houston, we have a fucking problem. What is going on out here right now? I see loads of people being abused and marginalized, taken advantage of, and this is state sanctioned. What are we going to do? And that has literally how I've experienced this practice, as something that, like, I am not separate from what is going on outside. I can't leave that the world is a shit show and I'm on a yoga mat doing the yoga, and I'm on a yoga mat doing the yoga, and that's separate. Like there's this thing outside, but I'm in yoga and I'm going to samadhi. I'm being enlightened, and there are literally people, and I'll say the UK, that are UK citizens, and they're trying to send them back to Jamaica. What? Like, excuse me? How's that going on? And I feel deeply this practice wakes us up to who we are. It wakes us up to the truth. It wakes us up to the truth of our own being, and then allows us to interact with other people in their fullness and their wholeness and their truth.
And I think there's been a bit of like a common theme, and like even the discussion in the previous episode, we were talking about how, we were talking about diet culture and how that's very distracting and kind of numbing to the things that are going on in the outside world. And I think part of that connecting to yourself and that process of connection is about empowering yourself to look outside. It's not just, it's about giving yourself headspace and strength and drive to consider your role in community and in society, and how can you not. And I think a lot of people practicing yoga, fitness, whatever, we're interested in health. I think we're just in mental health, physical health. And I think we can't ignore how social justice issues hugely impact people's health and mental health. And
not just the people that it's happening to, but it has a effect on the people that aren't quite in it, but we're a collective. So if we're doing these things, like if we want to say this thing about, and I don't like to necessarily drag morals into everything, but if you're indeed a good person and you see someone struggling, how are you going to feel? Not great. Like, I mean, to me, like, I don't know. I might be different, but if I see somebody really having a hard time, what I feel called to do is try to help in whatever way I could, right? And I mean, and I would say that, like, that's how most people are, right? They don't want to like see somebody dying in the street, you know?
And I think, and I hope most people at their core are that. And I think there's just so many inhibitors that stop people from having that empathy and compassion in the same way. And I really love to believe the best in people, and, think that, maybe it's a lack of knowledge, it's that lack of education, whether that be like through like a family education, through a teaching and those things. But I do think that I do feel like you're taught to hate. I think we're taught these things, right? You're not born hating, and I think we're born loving, the way you love your mum when you when you're a little one. And I think it's
one of these things where I think this system, and I think this is and we kind of chatted about this, and I think that this is what people are waking up to now, is that this system of white supremacy, it is a system. It is not a person. It is not like, it's not Tally, or it's not like Boris Johnson as a person. It is a system that we all participate in some way. So I'm not exempt from it because I'm Black. My participation in this is key. I have to, to keep the system going, everyone has to do their part to participate in it, right? And what we've seen now, I think everyone's had a bit of a wake-up call. And what I'll frame this as is, everyone's been at home. the normal things that keep us distracted, that keep us from looking away, that keep us looking away, keep us distracted, keep us numb and desensitized, sitting at home in this COVID pandemic for months, right? And we're working, and whether people liked it or not, people are working through their layers of bullshit. I've seen that. I've seen like people like, yo, I need to go to therapy immediately. Now, sitting at home, I don't know if you've seen where people are like, yo, my life was not okay. What was I doing? So they're having this critical.
I mean,
like,
Jonelle, I've had that realization.
Exactly.
I'm in therapy anyway, and I'm still like, whoa.
So we got a whole like world of people that are all at the same time. Now, again, we got to look at this, that it is happening in real time for all of us. And then we have these incidents, one after another, after another. And I think, again, this thing that you say you hope that people have inside of them to not be switched on. It said, It's like, you can't sit here and watch this and not do anything. What do you, because it is nothing, there's no distraction. You just saw that. You saw that. You can't look away. Not right now. What are you going to look to? What is it to look at? And it was nothing else to look at. It was this. This was it. This was in the consciousness. And this leaves us where we are right now, which is, I know, is an incredibly scary place, an incredibly difficult place, an incredibly uncomfortable place, a place full of fear, a place full of guilt, a place full of shame. But this is the opportunity to sit with these things, to look at them, to be in the things that we've been running from for years. That we, that all the work, overworking, all the alcohol, all the drugs, all the, over exercising, all of that keeps us from looking at this place. And I can put my hand on my heart, and I know you know what I'm talking about, Tally. I know you know, those sticky places.
And I think, and once again, that discomfort is layered for so many different people, because I think like the pandemic already made us start pulling up all the stuff that we had. And I mean, I'm speaking from personal experience here. And then it's been layered with this necessary moment in terms of Black Lives Matter and the movement, and what is, I mean, that I just feel like we're really shedding light on some really tough stuff, and it's all kind of coming out the woodwork, and it's this thing, and it's just a lot to process. And I just think, I mean, I think you were saying how we don't have anywhere to look, and I think that's what's been the power of social media in this moment. I mean, wow, has it been an incredible tool for change? I mean, it's also it seems to be a massive tool for bigotry and negativity. But I also think that the people who are putting out the work, who are putting out the resources, particularly Black women who have been I know they've been there this whole time, and
all the time,
but it's just it's like the work that they're doing is incredible, necessary, and we're seeing it. And I think it just feels like a massive race to catch up. It just feels like
so here's the thing with it. It's so funny. I've been, I mean, and I was like, I'll put my hands up. I've been involved in this sort of work. Like, it's my dharma, it's my purpose. It's, even if I when you open your eyes to the truth, you can't look away. And the universe drags me kicking and screaming doing this work. Sometimes I'm like, oh, do I have to? It's gotta be me again. Okay. And I was addressing a group of it was an allyship call for white women yoga teachers, and there were like over 150 people that signed up for this, right? And so I went to the call, and I said, right, you're late. You're late. Can't mince my words. And this is, again, it's not to necessarily shame anyone, but to say, like, you know, we talked about, this stuff has always been happening. This stuff has always been going on. There are people that have been, again, 6 months ago, if I would have said white supremacy on my Instagram, I would have got a lot of people calling me racist. Right. It's been like people that have been here, that have been called racist, that have been gaslit, that couldn't, have lost money, have lost jobs, have lost their livelihoods for standing and telling the truth. So we got to stand here and tell you the truth, that you are late. You are late to this fight. So because you're late, this means there's no more space for dilly-dallying. You're in it, and you really work well with us, and that work is all the time, and it doesn't cease, and it's not when you feel like it. And today I'm gonna take a month off from doing this stuff. It's not. It's constant. It's every day. And what I mean by that is not telling you got to go to a Black Lives Matter march every day. That's not what I mean. So let's just throw that one out of here. But these critical processes of what we've had to do in this collective awakening, where we start to look at the inner white supremacist that lives inside of us, right? This inner white supremacist that wants to make everything perfect. This inner white supremacist that wants all of these outward shows of, I don't want people to think I'm racist. But this inner white supremacist that doesn't want to do this work to not be racist, right? It's just, that every day we're, like looking, like, how is this showing up for me in my life, and being aware of it. And through this awareness, through the being able to see, then we can take meaningful, incredible action. Because if we can't look at it, if we keep kind of like, I'm just gonna like doing this kind of half looking, if we can't see it, then and name it, then how on earth will we heal it? It's impossible. And I also call to, I know in your community, in which there will be a lot of people engaging through the work of body positivity, intuitive eating, intuitive exercising, because they would have had an eating disorder. And it is and I hold that, and I hold everyone that has experienced disordered eating. I'll put my hand up to that too. I hold everybody in their wholeness, in their fullness, and in their deep worthiness, right, to receive nourishment. But it's the same sort of interrogation that you had to do around that. Like, where are the triggers? What makes me do that? Where does this come from? It's the same thing that we have to do with white supremacy in ourselves. So, it's not, this is not separate work. This is not different work. If you've had an illness or an addiction or anything, and I think most people will have had a thing, if you've gone into recovery, there are steps. You got to sit with it and be with it, that stuff. And it's the same thing around dismantling the system of oppression that not only oppresses Black and brown people, but it's oppressive to white people as well.
And we were talking about, like, before we started recording today, diet culture. I talk about that a lot, and like that is not separate from this issue. And in fact, that is so. If we're talking of and I think you use the kind of analogy of like the pillars. And if we say that like white supremacy is at the top of that pillar, and we've got all these different pillars, is the structure. And then at the top of it, we've got these pillars holding up. Diet culture is one of them.
Yes.
And they're not separate things. So the way we talk about let's ditch diet culture, dismantle diet culture, it is part of chipping away at white supremacy as well. And we can't ignore that those two things coexist. We have to recognize it. And, you know, before we started recording today, I put a post up on Instagram saying, like, I have been having thoughts around my body image that I have not had for years. And it's been such, I'm going to just go and swear, it's just been such a head fuck to think you've done so much work, you've come so far, and you're still having to work on this stuff. And you're like, I thought it was almost there. And I think, you know, the same with anti work, it's like, it's going to keep coming up. It's not a destination. It's coming up and coming up and coming up. And, you know, and I think maybe partly it's coming up for me because of this racism conversation, right? So yeah, this is not separate. This is linked, and it overlaps, and, you know, it's intersectional, you know.
Amen. I mean, and I think that's why I really, again, it's in alignment. There's a lot of people that have been asking me to do a lot of things right now, right? Because I'm Black and I'm a woman. And we always get asked to do the thing. And when you asked me to come on, I knew we could really have such a rich conversation because of the work where you're at, because diet culture has racist roots. Do you know, you don't want to have this bigger body like a Black person. And diet culture has deep roots in misogyny of how we're going to control these women, have them skinny and hungry and can't think straight.
Because if we thought straight, we would see these systems of oppression and we would have dismantled them sooner, right?
Yeah. And people are so tied up in, again, diet culture coming from white supremacist beauty standards. It's all linked. It you know, from, you know, the person that's at the top of the chain dictates how everybody must look.
Because, yeah, you know, all those beauty standards, like, let's talk about magazine covers. I mean, there's been so much stuff around Vogue recently, and how there's been, like, particularly in the USA, I think Anna Wintour, editor of Vogue, had said, like, yes, after 30 years of her being editor, like, yes, there is a lack of diversity in our covers, or something like that. It was very, you know, just like finally admitting that, yes, she has only had white women on her cover for so long. And, like, if we're looking at, like, actresses and models and all these people that we compare our bodies to, right? All those people are white. You know, the vast majority of those people are white. And yeah, how can we have not internalized, and how can people of all races not internalize that? Like, that's what we should be aiming for. You know, we've all, like, we should be blonde, we should be thin, we should be, you know, whatever.
Yeah. And I mean, and that is just something that, you know, people are like, how did this happen? Like, I'm not racist. How did this happen? And it's these structures. This is, you know, how it happened. Or even, like, okay, if you're, you know, trying to go do PT sessions, right? And go to the gym. And then they want to weigh you and do your fat and the BMI and all of this stuff where you're like, you know, now where you just, like, you scream when people do that. You listen, like, your face, no, you just went like, where did that come from? And who is that ideal? Who is setting that? And when you look at different cultures, but it's just like, there's a slim amount of people that is their natural predisposition. So why are we out here trying to make somebody that's, like, doesn't fit into that's what we're going to measure their fitness by? What the like, no. Yeah.
I would love to do a full episode about BMI, but I think it's worth saying that BMI was invented by a Belgian mathematician who only created his sample sizes off of white men. So not even females weren't even in
females.
They weren't even in the conversation anyway to begin with. And it was, you know, and that was measurement of health, I'm using quotation marks here, was designed for population health. It wasn't even designed for individual level, and yet it's become so ingrained in our thing. And the mathematician, this Belgian guy, was known to be racist. So all of these things, like if we just think about like all the things the white men invented in general, right? If that's where a lot of these structures are coming from, medicine, all these things, it's no wonder, like, you know, they set the foundations and we just were the bricks on top of it. And we've got to get to those foundations.
And I think that's why, you know, when I see things like, if you're doing body positivity, it means you have to do anti-racism. When I see things like this, I'm like, finally. And that when I see white people saying it, finally, they figured this out. Good. Mm-hmm. Now we can, you know, now in these things, it's like, we needed the critical mass to be able to do this. Mm-hmm. We needed people to be able to start to wake up, to see these systems, to see, like, when we were chatting, when you brought up, this is like Black Lives Matter, it's a bit like Me Too. Well, you know, Me Too was started by a Black woman.
Yes,
and it's
Tarana Buck.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So it's all in alignment, you know, it is all in alignment to topple this system of oppression. And I know I made this thing, the statement that I said to the ladies, well, you're late, right? I said, but then I'm going to tell you the good news. You're here. You're all here now. And because there are so many people here to do this work, we can get this work done. Because there's so many people to do it. And each of us can do this in our way of where we're in. My friend Toral Shah, I know you know Toral, she said to me, she's like, this whole thing is like, we're all like popcorn. Some people are going to pop at different times. Yeah. You know, when you're popping popcorn. And that's where we got it. And it is, you know, some people, it just popped. Okay, cool. That's all right. We've been popped for a while. We're here. We're going to help you. You know, we're going to help get you up to speed and up to your speed as well, because I keep, you know, bringing back that not everybody can be going to marches and marching. There might not be a march where you live, right? Not everyone can, you know, be on social media all the time saying all these things. But, you know, we all have ourselves. We can all educate ourselves around these issues. We can all, if you're over a certain age, vote. You know, for people that care about people. You know, we can all do that. There's not one person that can't, you know, like, I mean, if you're underage to vote, you can't vote. But that is something, as people that live in societies, Western societies, we all have votes. We can all do that and make sure we spend our votes where it's going to count. All of us have families, and we can spend time educating our families and having these hard conversations with our families. I know the people in our sphere of influence. And especially like the women, the mamas out here, right? We're the ones that are going to change the world by the way we educate our children and what we influence our children with, and not like unrealistic beauty standards, boys and girls, right? Because we want to stop the boys causing these problems, right? Unrealistic things. We're the ones that can make sure that our children have diverse role models, and they see, you know, different sorts of movies, different sorts of music, and all of that stuff. So everyone, and I'm saying, I'm like, everyone has their part to play in dismantling the system. And I think also when we speak to, I know you had a question about the wellness industry, calling people out, and not necessarily like in an aggressive way, but you can. I sent Women's Health of thing after they were like, oh, these Black people. I said, well, I want to see you put your money where your mouth is, and let's get some Black people on the cover. And I ain't volunteering it to be myself, but somebody.
Mm.
Let some people of color
And
on the cover.
not just one person a year. It needs to be,
Yeah.
regularly.
Hire some people on your social media and content team that are of color. Get some people in management on boards, that are running these things, that are involved in the programming, because that's when we'll see real change as well. Because we can do things in the micro, but then we have to demand it of the macro, where it's like, Anna Wintour, you need to get some more Black and brown folk up in vogue that are making the decisions, because clearly you live in an echo chamber, a bubble. So you need to widen that. And that's, also a big thing is like, invite more people to the table that don't look like you, that don't sound like you. There's strength in diversity. If things are more diverse, it's smarter, it's faster, it's stronger. There have been studies done on that. If it's all one type of person and all one way, it's not as effective.
Totally. And I think just a quick note on Vogue. I think so Edward Enninful is the editor of UK Vogue. He is a Black man, and he has done incredible things for Vogue, simply based on, like you said, a Black person being there to say, like, yeah, this is the photographer, this is the model, this is the actress, this is the person I'm working with, and making sure that their team also reflects that as well. And I think he's killing it, to be honest. He's killing it. And
exactly. And everybody's buying the magazine still. And then people have this idea, but this is the lie, this is the trick of white supremacy. And this is what we all get hooked into, that if it's not somebody that's white, skinny, and blonde, then somehow it's not going to be good and it's not a value. And that is bullshit. It's a lie. It's diminishing. It's diminishing for the people that are that, because you're basically saying that that's the only reason we should listen to you, that that's the only reason that makes you good. And that is false, and it's a lie, and it is just wrong. It's wrong. Everyone is capable. Everyone has their talents that they're supposed to share with the world. White supremacy diminishes everyone by saying that it's only a selected few that get to do this.
And especially when it's like based on that beauty standard, and it's saying like the way you look is all you have to give.
Yeah.
And actually it's like, no, we all have so much more than that. And I'm always saying, we had a podcast with Beauty Redefined, and I don't know if you're aware of their work, but they're incredible. They do a lot around education, and that one of their mantras is, your body is an instrument to be used, not an ornament to be looked at. And they're all about like, you have so much to give beyond the way you look, and the objectification and the self-objectification is what is halting us from fulfilling what we need. And going back to the conversation around how is diet culture playing into and stopping us from fulfilling our potential, is like, when you're hungry, when you're worried about your workouts, when you're worried about what you weigh, you ain't got time to be questioning the magazines, being like, hang on a second, like, who is on your staff? Like, I'm saying this from personal experience. Like 5 years ago, I don't know where I would have been. This might have been the disruption that I needed, but would I have been this present and this aware of this conversation? Probably not. And so I think it's really important that we feed ourselves and energize ourselves for this work, because you need energy, and we can't. And I think in terms of the work around body image and that self-work, I think that's really, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on this, because my thoughts are that it's really important to do that inner work so that you can externalize it, so that you can push forward. And it's not to say that you can't do social justice stuff until you've done that. I don't think that's true, but I think you just become so much more, there's so much greater strength within you, and you're less you're more grounded in what you're doing. And I just love to hear your thoughts on that.
I mean, that's yep. Yeah, I concur. Yeah. And I think that also the one of my teachers, and is and she's a beautiful, her name is Layla Sadeghi. I'm doing a live with her.
Mm-hmm.
She's amazing. She's in the UK. She's in, if you get, you know, you want to do this yoga, meditation, spiritual life thing, she's a great guide to it. And what she always holds this is that there are multiple, like, when you talk about layering, there's a lot of things happen on different layers at one time, right? So I might be heavy into my inner work and not very much is going on the outside. So it could look like, and here we go with the black squares, because I ain't put one up. It could look like I don't care about this, right? But I'm in a deep inquiry and doing this inner work and ordering my inner world so I can engage more fully. So if I put a black square up, you know I fucking mean it, right? And then there are some friends where, and especially if we talk about our social media world, they were throwing those black squares up, but they haven't done that inner stuff yet. So now we're inviting them like, okay, so you put that black square up, cool, all right. So let's put some meaning behind that. So let's start to come to the inner. So it's different things happening on different levels for different people at different times. And it doesn't make, you know, again, what I would say white supremacy and a lot of this stuff is about perfectionism, and we got to put that shit away. That perfectionism, I know it, Taylor, that perfectionism needs to fucking burn.
Yes, talk about it. Let's talk about it, because
perfectionism, yeah, go ahead. Like it's because that is, again, if you look at some of these pillars that hold this white supremacy up, you're like, what? And how it shows up in our lives with it as women, orthorexic, like not eating, not, you know, can't
the
over
thought that, like,
exercising.
if I'm not perfect, I can't do it. If I'm not, so whether that's like, if I'm not perfectly versed in anti-racism work, I'm not going to say anything. But that also goes to, like, if I don't weigh the perfect amount, I can't go on holiday. It's the same perfectionism, right? It's the same thing, but it's the same thing that, like, I think particularly women have been told, because, and like, I'm thinking out loud, but do you think because we as women have been told that, you know, men can kind of get by doing the bare minimum, we have to step up and do things quite perfectly. And so to be perfect is what we've been taught in how we are meant to show up in all aspects. And actually being imperfect and just doing it
there's no wholeness in perfection.
Yeah.
There's no wholeness in perfection. Perfection does not allow you to be whole. It doesn't. It only allows for a certain part of you to be presented. That's it. It doesn't allow you to be whole. It does not allow you to participate in your life fully. And we know, again, some of these behaviors, some of these things that are going on, and like, what does it do? Not allow you to behave, to engage in your life fully.
And
it's all the same things.
And not be your totally authentic self, because you're presenting all the time. You're not being, you're presenting. And I think, is so interesting. And I think, like, just on a personal level, so, you know, a lot of work I'm doing in therapy, I think, is just learning to just be a bit more, and, you know, just be able to just do nothing. And I think that perfectionist aspect, that busy, I've been really interested in talking about being busy recently. And I think all these things are ways in which we've been, like, presenting and looking for validation rather than just being exactly who we are and knowing that that's enough.
And I like when you talk about, like, and you go, and I just didn't work out because I was tired and my body didn't want to. And this resting as a practice, like, you know, that we need to schedule in some rest too, because that will help to sustain us in our work. Because again, this perfectionism, this white supremacy, it doesn't allow anybody to rest.
And it pushes
No
us
one
to
gets to
burnout.
rest
Yeah. And it pushes us to
all the
burnout.
time.
And I think,
You got to
you
keep
know,
going.
even weeks, the past few weeks, I think, it depends who you're following on social media, but I think in general, like, maybe people aren't sharing as much. And I don't think you have to necessarily be sharing things 24/7, but I think that it was like we were trying to overcompensate initially. And I think for me, I've kind of like taken on the mindset of like marathon, not a sprint, just steady drip feeding.
Hold steady.
Just in terms of drip feeding for me, because I find personally I get that, like, if it's too overwhelming, I need to like digest stuff, but also like output as well. We can't just like suddenly like wham on something. It needs to be a steady effort, keeping things in people's psyches, keeping things in the conversation, and
and giving yourself space to rest. Because again, if we give ourselves space to rest in this work, then that allows for other people to rest too. And that if we talk about it, like, you can, again, and that's why it's great about community and the collective. And I think, again, what was fantastic, definitely you and your community, it does feel like a community when you come into your Instagram page. And again, I got to meet some of your community in person, which was like so magic, right? Before we couldn't be out together anymore. And that being able to do this as a collective, because if I need to rest, right, but I still know Tally's over there fighting a good fight today. Tally's full of hell today. And she's doing it. And that is why, being in relationship with each other, having community, having people that help us to be accountable and learning together. And that's a big thing that I'm holding, is that let's learn together. Let's learn how to navigate this new landscape, this new world together. And we can only become stronger by doing that.
And I just wondered, like, if you just had any kind of thoughts on the specificity within like the fitness wellness space, and if there's any like key things that you've pointed that need to change, with more immediacy.
So I feel like a lot of energy and effort has been put into assembling this system of white supremacy. That much energy and effort is going to need to be put into disassembling it, to dismantling it, okay? And that you cannot just do it with an Instagram post. You cannot just, again, slap a Black person on your magazine. You cannot just get like a couple of the Black teachers that you think are big, right? And throw them and give them jobs and everything. Again, in this industry, it is built because of aesthetics. It is a direct representation of white supremacy at its best. That is what the wellness and the fitness industry is. That's truth. That's facts. I know people are going to be upset. Like, I can't. It is the way that it is, and that. I don't think when I say it, I'm sure people are like, ugh, I feel too. So let's dismantle it. And it starts from the top. If you are someone that is running a gym, these CEOs, a lot of stuff, if you look at the leadership, is white men. So anti-racism work, yourself, interrogate it. People will say, all right, well, why would they want to do that? Well, I know a lot of people that are looking at companies now with a very sharp eye to see what people are doing. And if you say you're selling health and you're selling well-being, but you're only selling it for specific people are going to start to leave and divest. So again, it is worth people's while to engage in this work meaningful. Like I'm telling everybody in the fitness industry, read the fucking room. People do not want it in this way anymore. Read it. They want to see all shapes, all sizes, all people, especially somewhere like London. It's a disgrace that only white people are held up. White people don't even make up most of the population in London these days. So it's got to stop. And get over your egos and your bruised feelings and everything like that. And think about what you are selling. And you're selling health and you're selling wellness. And everyone gets to participate in that. Hire managers that are Black and brown. There are plenty of them. You could just look around the people working on probably, you know, you allow them to be a personal trainer, but you don't allow them to manage or, you know, set up programming and things like that. And instantly things will start to change and feel better because in offering people training around diversity, put money into it. Hire a diversity, wellness, inclusion, and equity consultant. If you are a bigger company, you need to get someone, have them to work there as a manager to make sure that these things are happening all the time. So it becomes in the DNA of the culture that we care about people in general. Like I know people like Black Lives Matter, but also if we keep working with this framework, a lot of people are not mattering. You know what I mean? A lot of people are not mattering. In a lot of these the bigger gym spaces, I'll say, and even the largest you know, yoga studio in London, you look at the board and it's white and it's male. How are you going to make decisions that are going to be good for me? How would you ever do that without having somebody in the room that is more like me? If you say you care about people. And then if you don't do these things, then that sends a message that you don't, and we will look and we will see and we will spend our money in other places that do. It's simple. And I think that that's where we're getting to, is that people want a more fair and equitable world for everyone. You know, like everyone is getting sick of this system because it doesn't work. We've seen it. It's just like falling apart. The world has fallen apart. And I think that's why people are more like willing to engage with this now too, because the folks that it was holding up are getting a raw deal now too. It's just like, let's just get something new for everyone. So,
and I think on your point of like fair and equitable world, that is meaning for everyone. It benefits everyone. It's like, I think people get I think the pushback to Black Lives Matter is like, that means that like immediately white lives won't matter. And that's, do you know what I mean? And it's just like, it's not about swapping.
And that's just craziness.
It is crazy.
And that's just, and what
but I think there's that fear in some, parts of the world.
What I'll tell you is Black people don't want to be on top. They just want to be able to participate in this world like everyone else does. I don't want to so right now, and I'll say this, I really don't leave my house that much. Why? Because I'm a Black woman and COVID is affecting the Black community much more than it is white community. So I know that if I get this disease and I go into the hospital, my chances of not walking out are far higher because I'm Black. What? Like, why should my life be like that? Why should anyone's be like that? Think about that. That's just facts. That's not wishful thinking and trying to make it utopia. Why? Why should that be? I want to be able to, if for instance I got it, walk into the doctors and get the best care and the same care and recover like somebody who was white. That's it. That's all. That is what we're talking about when Black Lives Matter. Not like white lives don't. We're talking about that we get to live just like everyone else. That's it.
Jonelle, I really think we should leave it there because I think that is so it. That is so it. I have really appreciated your time. Thank you so much. Like I said, I know you're very in demand right now. And, I'm really grateful that we've been able to connect and you've been able to share so much incredible stuff. Like, oh, I'm really excited for people to hear this episode.
I'm really, again, so grateful to be with you. I love you, Tally. And I thank you for all the support that you've given me from the very beginning. Like, it's amazing. And I really, I'm really grateful. And I'm grateful for what you're doing for your community, holding their hand as we, learn more together. Again, I offer myself here as a resource to you because you've been a resource for me. And I am really so honored and deeply, deeply happy to do this work with you. We do it together.
Thank you. It really means a lot.
Thank you so much.
Where can people find you? Where can people find you for yoga, but find you for your discussions around this? Because I know you're doing lots of Instagram lives.
So I am on Instagram as Jonelle Yoga, my name, Jonelle, yoga. And I have a website, jonellelewis.com. And so that the Instagram lives are there. I have a YouTube channel and I throw them up on YouTube because I know some people like YouTube better. And I also have yoga classes on a platform called Movement for Modern Life. There's a 14-day free trial if you want to, and a 20% off if you use Jonelle20. So that's where I am right now. And there'll be more things happening sooner rather than later. But right now, that's where you can find me. And again, I am very glad to be able to, for what I have to offer it with love and to offer it freely.
I really hope everyone listening has enjoyed this episode. Remember, if you do, tag us on @TrainHappyPodcast. Use the hashtag #TrainHappyPodcast and just share what you've learned from today's episode, because I think the more we continue this conversation online, the more people we can point in the direction of this discussion. I think that is how we, continue this work. It's like we got to keep sharing it, keep sending it to your friends. Yeah. Thanks, Jonelle. Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you.